Hello. Thank you for joining our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Colossians. Today we're in chapter 3 and we continue in verse 9. As always, we want to get the full context of what Paul's trying to say in the verse we're looking at. So we need to read the verses before and after to do that. So go ahead, start in verse 5, read through verse 11 so you can fully understand Paul's thought here as we read verse 9. Today, verse 9 says this: "Do not lie to one another, since you laid aside the old self with its evil practices." So as we look at verse 9, there's two parts there. That second part about laying aside the old self, that's going to really tie into the beginning of verse 10. So we'll leave that until tomorrow. Today we'll look at the first part that says this: "Do not lie to one another." Now, what's interesting about that is that Paul, up to this point, has already given us two separate lists of behaviors and attitudes that we as Christians should have left behind, that we should no longer be doing. And yet here, he gives us one more that sits by itself. It's all alone. And so the question is, why is this particular one so important to Paul? And the first thought might be, well, the church at Colossae, maybe they were doing some serious lying to each other. And while that's definitely possible, it's probably improbable, and I'll tell you why. If you remember, the book of Colossians was also written at the same time as the book of the Ephesians, right? So it's all part of Paul's prison epistles, the letters that he wrote while he was in prison. And so while these two are written together to two different churches, we see that Paul has the same thought in the letter to the Ephesians in chapter 4, verse 24 and 25. So we see that he has that same thought there. So unless all the churches have the same real major problem of lying to each other, we recognize that that's probably not what's going on here. We recognize that this is just something that's really important that Paul wants us to know about. So why is that? Well, if we recognize where lying comes from, we realize that it comes from Satan. We realize that Jesus called Satan the father of lies, while Jesus called himself the truth. So we have a choice. We can be with the father of lies, or we can be with the truth. And since we are now new creations, we are no longer the old creation. Lying, which is part of the old creation, when we were sons of disobedience, sons of Satan, and we were following the father of lies, should not have anything to do with us anymore. That instead now we should be in the truth. Now remember, lying is one of the 10 commandments, right? Thou shalt not give false witness. So it's something that is near and dear to God's heart from the very beginning of the faith. And it comes all the way through into the New Testament and into the writings of Paul. So we recognize that lying is something that is really important that we shouldn't be doing. Now notice it also says, do not lie to one another. And when we think about that, we recognize that it's not saying that we should stop lying to Christians, but it's okay to lie to everybody else. That's obviously not what Paul's saying. But Paul's making the point that this sin of lie is a community sin. It's a sin that doesn't hurt just me, but it's a sin that hurts me and the people who I am lying to, and the people who are listening to those lies, and the people who are being affected by those lies. Because remember, when we lie, we're telling an untruth to somebody, and now that person may believe that untruth to be true, which would send them down the wrong path, which is exactly what the false teachers are doing. Or it shows to everybody else that we cannot be trusted because they recognize that it is untruth. So in any case, it's something that affects the entire community. So lying, as opposed to some of these other sins that we were looking at, is a community lie. It's not just on me, but it's on me and on everyone else who might hear it. And why it's so insidious is that somebody may hear it, think it's the truth, and share that as well. Now, they believe they're telling the truth when they're actually spreading lies. And so lying is tremendously important. It's near and dear to God's heart that we do not lie. So does that mean that we can do a little bit of lying? Well, can we do a little bit of sinning? Because recognize this is a 10 commandment, and this is a sin against God, that it literally is against the person of God. Jesus is the truth. When we lie, we are literally going against Christ. So can we do a little lie? A little white lie? A lie that doesn't hurt anybody? The answer to all of that is no. As Christians, we need to be in the truth. And if we don't trust that God can protect us in the truth, then do we really believe? Where's our faith? So live in the truth. Live in the knowledge that when you don't live in the truth, that you're literally going against the truth, who is Christ himself. So with that, we conclude verse 9. Thank you for being with me today as we do this. We'll continue with this as we move forward in the rest of chapter 3. If you have any questions on verse 9 or anything else, go ahead and put them in the comment section below. Questions, thoughts, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you.